Hello, welcome to Wednesday night. Time to talk about sex. Whoop, whoop. Welcome to Sex Talk with Natasha. We're excited to bring another topic tonight where we're going to be focusing on sexuality and being single. And before we go there, I would just like to push for subscriptions. So far, we're really excited about the content and the weekly continuation, like the ongoing journey that Sex Talk with Natasha provides for everybody on a variety of topics. We're inviting you to really prioritize your sexual health. And we cover all kinds of topics, and I provide all kinds of resources throughout the week, homework assignments, blog posts, sometimes guided imageries, affirmations, etc., to help you attain the sexual lifestyle and quality that you want. And especially with the emphasis of sexual health and sexual healing. So I hope you'll join us on this adventure. And if you're finding value in what we're doing, please consider supporting me and my work at the Patreon subscription. And there's all different kinds of levels. Without further ado, I will turn the time over to the show's producer, which is Ashley.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining. For those that are new to the show, we're going to take a couple minutes where Natasha's going to give us an education on the topic. And then we have a great guest today, Adam, who's going to join us and share his story with us. And Natasha's really going to kind of dive into his questions. And then at the end, we'll have about 20 minutes of audience questions. So if you have questions at all regarding the topic, go ahead and send them your way. And we'll make sure to ask them. So you can reach us on Facebook. Obviously, we're on, Patreon for those of our subscribers on there. So the first half an hour will be free on Facebook. The entire episode will be on Patreon for our subscribers. And so if you're not a subscriber, you should totally head over there, patreon.com/sextalkwithnatasha. Natasha already gave a great breakdown of what you'll get with the subscription. And as a reminder, it's a great and cost-effective way to get started with a sex therapist. And you'll get access to this weekly show. You'll get Natasha's weekly blog posts, homework assignments, online courses. We've got a lot of stuff going on over there on the Patreon page, so go check it out. She's recently been doing what do you call it, Natasha? Daily
action towards healing from sexual shame. And so on days that I don't post something like tonight, I usually have some type of affirmation or homework assignment for you to do. So you're going to get something every single day from me, whether it's a live show like this, whether it's a homework assignment, whether it's an online course. Depending on the level of subscription, we're really trying to give you a daily aspect, kind of like going to the gym and working out your muscles. Well, this is working out your sex muscles and your sexual healing muscles. So we're really excited about that. And one thing I'll say too before I get started is we're really trying a model to make it very cost effective. But the only way that's going to work is if we get a lot of subscribers. So it's not going to work if I have 10 or 30 or even 50 subscribers. We need hundreds of subscribers to make a very cost effective model work. So if you're finding any level of value from this and want to support me in this project and my time, please consider some level of subscription. There's all different kinds of levels, and they're all very inexpensive. I wanted that to be the case so that really anybody or almost anybody could access this type of resource, which I think is so important. It's so important to prioritize our sexuality, our sexual health, our sexual relationships. So did you want to say anything else, Ashley? Did I cut you off?
No, you were great. The only other thing I wanted to say is if people do want to see Natasha professionally, you can go check out her online practice at Symmetry Solutions, and that's symmetrysouls.com. So check that out as well. She has some great resources over there as well. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. So I'm going to turn it back yet again over to Natasha.
Okay. All right. Well, we're here tonight to talk about singles and sexuality. And this is a really broad topic. So I'm actually going to jump into questions with our guest fairly quickly, but I wanted to say just a few things. Our last episode was done on non-traditional relationships. And in that episode, I talked about monogamous privilege. And I think that there's something to be said for couple privilege in our society, where singles often tell me that they feel like subpar citizens, that everybody is either talking to them about when are you going to meet your match, right? Or when are you going to get married? Or when, oh, it's future oriented. And that can be extremely frustrating for people who are in this type of position for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's a painful reminder of something that you want and haven't found yet. Sometimes it feels like a minimization of your current life as a single person, like I can actually be a complete human being and be single, and what's your problem for continuing to bring it up? Like it's my issue. Some people are perfectly happy with their single life and feel frustrated that there's kind of like a stigma or some type of treatment of how they're different. And again, some people are really looking for something, but are very kind of in a painful position that they haven't found it. So given all of that and how talking to singles about sexuality, I find I have to be, especially as a married person myself, careful to be very inclusive of their feelings and their situations and their experiences that they've had as a single person. I really thought I would veer away from just a generalized way of talking about it today and really dive into our guest's experience. So Adam is here with us. Oh, are you here? Yeah. So Adam is here with us today, and I would just really like to, start with your questions, your specific questions to your specific situation, and also keeping in mind that your situation is not going to be every single person out there. So how about that?
Sounds good. Thank you, Natasha and Ashley. So yeah, I am a single dad of one awesome toddler, and about a year ago, separated and divorced from my ex-wife. And so now exploring sexuality and singleness as an adult for the first time, because we were together for over 10 years. And so it's a different experience as a 30-something than as a college student.
Right.
And the other fun thing is, to kind of add the mix to it is, so one thing is I'm bisexual, so that's adding a different flavor to being single. And another piece is that it's in the digital age, right? There were no apps for dating when I was last single. So kind of with that as kind of the kind of in a nutshell of my experience, one of the things I've found is that I'm really looking to balance kind of having my sexual needs met, having, a regular partner where it's clear that, hey, we're not, in a monogamous committed relationship, with also kind of feeling out and exploring the possibility of being open to something longer term. I find myself in these one-time hookups, and then it's very quick that, one person or the other gets more interested. And this isn't something that I've really dealt with as much. So kind of looking at that, being upfront about my needs, and respecting the other person's needs, but also, not necessarily putting things beyond where either of us wants to go in a relationship.
Wow. Okay. So I think what you're really talking about is negotiations and how tricky that can be at the beginning of certain relationships. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Specifically in regards to, and I guess what you mean by sexual needs, are you referring to this idea that for you personally, you enjoy some type of sexual relationship, some ability to have sexual release, to have orgasms, to have pleasure, to have sexual experiences, not necessarily attached to long-term commitment? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, definitely.
And then that becomes a problem because maybe some of the people that you thought you were keeping it casual with then have a deeper attachment to you than you had intended.
Yeah, and then I found myself on the other side of that as well, where it was, a little bit more casual, and I started looking for something more serious and made it clear that I might be interested in that, and the other person's quickly backing away. You know, how to navigate that kind of gracefully, and continue that communication without necessarily kind of killing what had been a, you know, a good thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so this gets messy quick, right? And so I think that um, part of dating and part of being single and part of exploring these types of relationships is maybe the acceptance that things are going to at times go well, at times go extremely well, and at times be kind of an utter disaster, right? And that's kind of part of the playing field of what you're dealing with. And because I think oftentimes in this world where being single has been more normalized, having sexual experiences outside of a committed relationship has been more normalized. In fact, sometimes it's even expected. I hear sometimes like this, I'm supposed to be doing this whether I want to or not type of a thing. But if you're enjoying that and you're out there and you're negotiating relationships, I think that we have this almost sitcom idea that things will just be very easily, we're all mature adults, we all can just talk about these things. I can, as long as we negotiate, we'll be fine, kind of ignoring the very primitive aspects of ourselves that are quite emotional and can attach easily, maybe easier than we had wanted, that can feel heartbreak, that can feel jealousy, that can feel some really intense emotions around some of these sexual encounters. And then feeling like, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with you? Because we're both supposedly mature, calm adults just trying to negotiate a sexual experience. I mean, does any of that ring true to you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also part of it is, you know, for me particularly, is it's kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in
Yeah.
those relationships, right? And I'm working on that for sure, but you know, yeah, as you said, it gets messy easily, and it's one of these things where I feel like it's almost like a constant balancing act, you know. So, but yeah, absolutely, you know, that definitely resonates, and it's, you know, it's one of these things where, you know, okay, we can try to say, okay, this is what, you know, what we're looking for, but sometimes that changes over time. I think it was easier for me in a committed relationship to bring up evolving needs, but when there's kind of this understanding of it being not a committed relationship, it's almost harder to broach those evolving needs.
Right. Because when you're in a non-committed relationship, you really are still navigating the aspect of what do we owe each other, you know, owe each other. Meaning, do I, you know, do you deserve a certain level of commitment from me, or do I deserve that from you? Or even though we've negotiated some things, now there's some assumptions because we're like 3 to 6 to 10 weeks down the road from our initial negotiations. So it is hard. I mean, I'm not sure that I have a great answer for you other than a lot of what you said. Constant communication, constant negotiations, constantly checking in. You're in a sense taking a risk with each partner, and depending on the type of intimacy you're looking for, that risk is probably going to go up higher. And if the intimacy your partner is looking for is not the same as the intimacy you're looking for, then therein lies the potential for grief or heartache, or, you know, those types of emotions. And so sometimes these relationships go really well for people, and sometimes they can feel exhausting. And why you know, oftentimes hear, you know, single people saying, I'm so tired of dating. I don't want to date anymore. I'm so tired of trying this every single time with a new person, because there is a level of, you know, how many times can I go through that roller coaster ride with somebody? So that just becomes kind of a personal, I guess, preference. You know, how many times do you want to risk your heart in that way? And in what ways do you want to risk your heart? And how does your sexuality tie into whether or not your heart is involved or not, right? Or sometimes are you sharing your heart and somebody's not necessarily sharing their heart in return, right? So it is difficult. What are your thoughts about, I mean, are you discouraged by these experiences? Do you feel like you're learning about yourself through these experiences? Do you feel like there's excitement and joy mixed in with some of the risk and heartache?
Yeah, I say yes to all of the above.
Yes.
No, it's definitely a learning experience for me, because I've been putting myself out in a way that I had never done as an adult. And I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with learning and growing, and kind of feeling out what it is I'm looking for and what it is I'm not looking for. Um, I did a very different type of relationship for a long time, and maybe I would like to do that again. I feel myself, yearning for certain parts of that, but I'm not ready to rush back into that either. And I think that's also an interesting piece, that I think plays out a lot more quickly, especially kind of in the digital dating scene, is that, people have these, very, which is fine, they can have these boundaries, but it's funny how quickly people get weeded out for either wanting to start off more casually and not rushing straight into things, or also at the same time, wanting to, some people.
Right. And how do you get good at some of the things that you just talked about, right? Because yeah, I think, 30, 40 years ago, the dating scene was fairly typically geared towards finding your marriage match, right? Heterosexually. And anything other than that, there wasn't a lot of script for or narrative. And then we had, like Friends as the episode, that kind of opened up kind of in the media casual sexuality, for singles in their 20s and 30s. And we've had, Sex in the City, and we've had, so we've had like a lot of this maybe movement towards part of the sexual revolution, which means I get to decide how to be sexual, and it doesn't have to be in the confines of a marriage. And I can have multiple sexual partners and not be broken or damaged, or those types of things. So in some ways we've moved forward by getting rid of some of those scripts. But in other ways, I think what you're saying is that there's also a certain level of rigidity that you're finding even in this new landscape. Like it's not, I can't be too needy, or not needy enough, or or I need to be open to these types of situations, or then I'm going to be, typecast in this particular way. And I do think that one of the things that's happening with social media in general, or with digital media, is that we tend to we're very quick at decision making, versus some of what you're saying, maybe the intricacies of taking it slower and making decisions as we go, instead of like swipe left, swipe right, we're done with the decision. and it's going to mean this, instead of maybe having it be more open to nuance.
Yeah, it is definitely not a nuanced thing, right? It's very much a quick swipe. Oh, there's always more people right after that. It's almost infinite barrage of available singles or not singles in the area. It becomes interesting, and it's things like, whether they're looking for, in my case, a lot of people are saying, not looking for anyone who's been married or has kids before, or it could be, height or political preference, or any of these myriad things that are very quick to just, automatically reject, which is interesting, because I definitely think I am more of a nuanced person and a get to know you person. And so it's interesting to go through the, and then at the same time, I'll see things that will quickly turn me off about somebody, and and so, I find myself, it's almost like, I'm catching myself being hypocritical. And apparently the app dating scene has lots of strong opinions around the use of the Oxford comma. Like it's just funny that there's all
Yeah.
these quirks.
Oh my goodness, that is crazy. Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I mean, I remember back when I was dating, that was pre-digital world completely. And you could definitely go out to dinner with somebody and immediately kind of know that you're turned off. Right? And immediately kind of like, you have your friend who's going to call you and get you out of the situation, the emergency call, right? So those kinds of things, those things happen whether there's digital issues or not. But I think what you're saying is that because we've gotten so used to this profiling, and fitting a certain type of box that's going to be my correct match, that somehow then we lose a little bit of the potential there for creativity or for openness that maybe you're missing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting kind of line to balance, that trying to find people who are kind of open to exploring something different. And there's a lot of profiling. It's really interesting, and one of the ones that I find, another example is I'm part Hispanic, and like checking Hispanic on the box, even though I look white, I was born here, I have a very non-Hispanic name, but checking off like a mixed or Hispanic box on one of these apps automatically weeds me out of a lot of different people. And so it's like,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that go there with, like, wanting to present my authentic self, and me saying, hey, my mom's from Argentina, in a dinner conversation probably isn't going to weed me out nearly as much as it would, on checking a box on a profile.
That is fascinating. And by the way, my mom's from Argentina, so we just
That's awesome.
we just bonded.
Yes.
No, I that's so interesting. Or even just the profile, like the pictures. I hear this like, well, how a certain person posed in a picture, or what they were doing in the picture, or how they looked in the picture, or race, or background, or socioeconomic status. Like all of these things that you might at a dinner be, getting that information little by little from somebody and deciding little by little whether or not you're still interested in somebody. Within a blink of an eye on an internet profile, you can already make a decision or stereotyped decision about this particular person. That's a little bit disconcerting. And I hear the pressure from a lot of my clients of even coming up with these profiles, right? And how I'm going to present myself on these profiles to my potential, mate. So dating has always been, I think, a very pressured space to try to feel good about yourself as you're presenting yourself and possibly facing rejection. But I think there is something new to how the digital age has, both in some ways helped that process along, because people can now connect with people they would have never even been able to meet before. And then in other ways, it has also been, I think, adding a whole new level of anxiety and potential kind of messiness.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing, and everyone's got their take on how to game the system. I have a few friends who are like, just swipe right on everybody, and anyone who replies, you can just ignore them. And I'm like, that's not my personality. I can't, I don't want to, have this fake connection. But there's definitely this like authenticity thing with digital dating that,
Yeah.
I don't know, it almost makes the in-person encounters that much more meaningful.
It almost makes the what more meaningful?
In the personal encounters of actually meeting somebody face to face, a lot more meaningful.
I'm sure. Yeah. No, I'm sure and dating is tricky anyway, because in a sense, we're all presenting our best selves as we're dating, and that isn't always completely authentic. Not that we're lying necessarily, but we're presenting kind of what we feel is our most attractive self, right, to the person that we're interested in. And so there's a peacocking type of natural energy to dating anyway, that I can see that going awry quickly. And that, you know, whereas people, for example, have a picture that's 10 years younger than themselves, you know, on their profile, or looking a different way than they particularly look currently. So, you know, and then some people can feel really betrayed by that. Like, you lied to me, right? You didn't present yourself honestly on these particular platforms. So yeah, it is tricky. What can you tell me a little bit about what you hear your friends or people in similar situations either liking or not liking about these types of situations?
I'm actually going to jump in. Just hold 1 second, Adam, because we're definitely going to get to you. But it's that time.
Done with Facebook?
We are. But first, we need to do a shout out to Andy. His mom is also from Argentina.
Yay!
He was one of our commenters. So we've got a good little Argentinian, is that right? Family here tonight. So.
Vamos. Vamos. Empanadas, milanesas, vamos.
So thank you, Andy, for sharing that with us, and everybody on Facebook. Thank you so much. And head over to Patreon for those. Again, just as a quick reminder, you'll get lots of good stuff over at Patreon. So go to patreon.com/sextalkwithnatasha, and we'll be back again next week. So thanks everybody on Facebook.
To let you all know too, like, I really want to hear from you singles out there. Like, what about this discussion was interesting? What do you want to know as singles? I know we've talked a lot about dating dynamics, not so much sexuality just quite yet. We probably will. But I'd love to get more questions and even more guests who are in that scenario and want help navigating all of that. So thanks. We'll see you later.